I'm gonna set my own timer. I'm Josè. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 1, 2014. Very grateful for that. I have sponsors. His name's Pat. He's sitting right there. He knows he's my sponsor. I talked to him today. I saw him yesterday. Been talking pretty consistently all week. I have a home group. We meet on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. It's the Sunday morning Big Book study. We're down in the USARA building if you want to come check us out one of these Sundays. What else can I give you here? It's a little preamble. I'm in the book. I'm getting in the book with guys right now. Pat's taken me through the book twice. I volunteered for one of those times. I'll get into that maybe. But I'm in the book right now with other alcoholics, and I just completed another fourth step inventory. I don't know. Maybe that's I don't know. I can't even keep count how many times I've done that in the 10 years I've been in AA. I should probably start my share at my very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was in Los Angeles, California in 2002. This is very comforting. I love that y'all have the banners now with the steps and the traditions, because that's what I saw in meetings in California. You would go to churches or go to these, strip malls, places or whatever, and they would have a podium and they would have the steps and the traditions kind of behind. So that's very comforting to see that. I was sent to AA. I was sent to both AAs, right? Alcoholics Anonymous and then Alcohol Awareness by the Indio County Court for a DUI that I got in 2002. And I remember thinking when I got pulled over, or when I got the DUI, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like now I can stop. Like this is enough. This is good enough reason. I can quit drinking now. So that was the plan. That had been my plan the whole time. Started drinking at 14, and I knew it affected me in a weird way. And my relationship with alcohol was I wanted to stop, and I just couldn't. Kept doing it. And so at my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it was really weird to me. It felt like a cult. There was the steps, but only 2 of them mentioned alcohol, right? 1 and 12, and the rest are like God and higher power. And I was like, what is this? I had no idea what Alcoholics Anonymous was, honestly. I thought AA, for sure, was like where I could go and you can teach me how to control my drinking. And I'm thinking, like, well, what are they going to tell me? Like, eat beforehand? I already do that, right? Like, start with beer? Like, I already know all this, right? So I wasn't quite sure what AA was. And then I get in there, and then folks are talking about, like, abstinence and, like, not drinking. Like that's not a part of their regular diet. But I remember I was at my first 6 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and people would go up to the podium and they would share how, how the program was working in their life, how God was working in their life, and I didn't understand any of it. I didn't understand what any of this was because I didn't need to be there. I was just going to get those signatures, and then I was going to eventually quit drinking, and my life was going to be great. So people are going up to the podium and they're talking about like the steps and sponsorship and God and how God is helping them do what they can't do for themselves, right? Like including like not drinking. I'm like, well, obviously you need God to help you with that, not me. I'm in college. I'm a math major. Like I got this. Right? I'll be able to stop. And I remember people were sharing also. That God was helping them in all of the areas of their life, not just out with alcohol. God was helping them be a better son or a better daughter or a better, I'll never forget this, a better pet owner. I remember one guy went up there and he was grateful that he didn't kill his cat that day, and that was like a power greater than him. That was God, not him. And I was like, what does this have to do with drinking? What does any of this have to do with alcohol, right? Luckily for me, those meetings were real meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and so occasionally you would get somebody who went up to the podium and they described what happened to them when they consumed alcohol. and my ears would perk up, and I would sit up in my chair, and I would pay attention to that person, because that's the only thing I could relate to when I started going to AA, is the physical allergy. They were talking about the physical allergy of being an alcoholic. Once alcohol goes into my body, it is really unlikely that I can control what happens next. The simplest way of putting it is, once I start, I can't stop. And so I heard enough of that in AA to know, like, I was able to name that. It's like, oh, that's what happens to me. And before that, I had no clue that that didn't happen to non-alcoholics, right? I just thought that's what alcohol does to everybody, and that's not the case. So I went to those first 6 meetings with like a textbook or like a technical definition of alcoholism, of my alcoholism. I was like, okay, I'm an alcoholic according to that definition, but I don't need all of this. I don't need that, and I don't need these, and I don't need y'all. I'm in college, I got friends, I'm a math major, I got this. So I left those meetings, like I said, just with a very kind of like superficial understanding of what my alcoholism was. Didn't quite understand it as a potentially fatal disease for me. And so what ended up happening, I tried to control and enjoy my drinking for a number of years after that. I tried to moderate how much I drank. Here's some of the methods I've tried. Plastic bed sheets, that's always helpful. Getting people to babysit me, like having my good friend agree that he will take care of me when I black out, that he will ensure my safety. Just like looking at the calendar and be like, all right, what? We have a potluck on Thursday? What's today, Monday? Okay. So I won't drink today, and I won't drink tomorrow, and then I won't drink Wednesday. That way, by Thursday, I'll be fit. I can handle my liquor. So, just like insanity, right? Like I'm trying to manage and enjoy my drinking, and because I don't want to give up on it quite yet, because it did a lot for me. When I started drinking at 14, it wasn't like all the time right away. It was I just noticed that the first time I got good and drunk, I lost all control, right? I lost my motor skills, I lost all my inhibitions, and I loved that. Like, I loved feeling out of control. And it was puzzling to me when I would meet normal people or non-alcoholics, and they were like, yeah, I really don't like the effect that alcohol has on me. It makes me feel like I'm out of control, and I really don't like that. I'm like, I love that feeling, right? It also, in my late teens, I was also just had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. A lot of vitriol came out when I talked to you. Nothing made sense. Like, life didn't make sense to me, and the only thing that calmed me down was alcohol. Like, I was explaining to a psychiatrist, it's the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not crazy. And so there was a time when alcohol was my solution, right? It was the thing that was keeping me sane. And the psychiatrist looked at me, I'm a young man of 18 years, and he's like, you're not really old enough to drink. So you should just have you ever tried not drinking? I'm like, you don't understand. This is the only thing that's keeping me feeling like I'm sane. And they wanted to prescribe stuff, and I said, whatever you prescribe, just make sure that it's safe to mix it with alcohol, because I'm not going to stop. And they're like, you should stop. And I'm like, I'm not. They prescribed something. It was a terrible, terrible mix. So I go running back to the psychiatrist. I was like, this is not a good mix. I told you that it has to be safe. And they're like, and he's like, I told you that you shouldn't drink. And so anyways, they prescribed something else, still not a good mix. Mental health, alcohol, I stopped taking the medication. Kept going with alcohol. So anyways, that was when I was really, really in a dark place, and alcohol gave me what I needed at the time. It powered my life. I was hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging out with, and alcohol kind of fueled all of those interactions. That's what I needed. I had no other solution. By some miracle, I end up not killing myself, and I end up in school. I go to a community college for a number of years. I end up transferring to a 4-year college, and the summer before I transfer to this 4-year school, I get my DUI, I go to AA, and I already had this plan. I'm like, all right, I see there's potential here. I can do something with my life. I just need to quit drinking. And I was excited to quit, but just not quite yet. The last time that I got blackout drunk, that was another thing that happened. Almost every time that I drank, I blacked out. And I would end up either hurting myself or somebody else, or embarrassing me or you. Yeah, that was just my drinking story. So after, it took about a year and a half of trying to control my drinking, after those first few meetings of AA, where I was like, all right, I know I have this allergy thing. I just have to be determined in how much I drink. Like, it really only kicks in after like 4 beers. So I should just if I keep it under 4, I think I'll be cool. And the last time I got drunk and blacked out and ended up taking a pretty serious fall and injuring my face, injuring my hand, could have been so much worse. That was my intention. I was just going to have like a few beers. It's the end of the quarter. We're just out here celebrating. Not a big deal. So I black out. I fall. I smash my face in the concrete. And I get this amazing, amazing black eye, like the most beautiful shine you've ever seen. And my roommate is like, you should go get that looked at. You might have broken something in there. I'm like, whatever. Like another day goes by and it gets super purple. Like, this thing is like ripe. I was like, okay, I'll go get it checked. So I go to the university urgent care or whatever, and the doctor asked me, like, how did this happen? Like, I fell. And they're like, that's it? So you want to tell me you fell? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, well, I was in a blackout. And they were like, oh, okay. Does that happen a lot? I was like, what, blacking out? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I do that almost every time. Falling? I don't know. Maybe a lot, I don't know. And she said, have you ever thought about not drinking? And I said, yes, all the time. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, let's get you x-rayed. Let's go make sure there's nothing broken in there. It was beautiful. I'm telling you, this thing was amazing. So she takes the x-rays and everything comes back fine. She's like, yeah, it's a gnarly black eye. You're totally fine. I was like, cool, I'm out of here. Just gonna leave. And she's like, can I talk to you for a second? I was like, oh, almost made it out the door. She shuts the door. And I sit there and I'm feeling really sheepish. I'm like, what's up? And she's like, I want to talk about your drinking. I said, okay. And she's like, you said that you have thought about quitting. I was like, yes, since I started. And she's like, here's something that might help you. And this isn't AA, this is like her medical opinion. And she's like, it might help you to think of having a deadly allergy. It might help you if you think of yourself as deathly allergic to alcohol. What I mean by that is, she's like, I have a friend who's allergic to shellfish. And if she has any shellfish at all, her airways will swell up and it's very dangerous. She could die, very likely will die. You might think of yourself as being deathly allergic to alcohol. And I was like, that checks out. That really does check out. And so at the age of 24, I had this technical definition of alcoholism, right, where I have a physical allergy to alcohol. I'm deathly allergic to it. I was done. That was it. What had happened was, I am an alcoholic, and I was not in AA, and my alcoholism has very little to do with alcohol. It has to do with how I feel about me, and how I relate to you, and how I am in the world. At the time, if things don't go my way, I react very poorly. I need things to go my way. I demand it of the world. And as you can predict, a lot of times things don't go your way, right, as a human being in the world. And so I became, to help meet my needs of my untreated alcoholism, I threw everything at it. I would occasionally smoke weed. I often used people. I lied and manipulated people in situations to get what I wanted. I spent money like I had it, but I didn't. And I extracted as much as I could out of every single interaction because I was constantly trying to fill that void, and nothing was doing it. And that was me. I was a dry drunk, white knuckling, untreated alcoholic, and I was in a relationship circa 2009, 2010, and at that point I hadn't had any alcohol for over 4 years, and I was in a breakup. We were breaking up, and in our final conversation, she very sincerely and earnestly said, "I think that you need help. I believe you are an untreated alcoholic, and I hope you get the help you need." That's all. That was it. That was the last conversation. We went our separate ways, and I thought, this proves that she is crazy. I haven't had any alcohol in a number of years, and this is rock solid proof that she is the crazy one and I'm the sane one, and I can walk away from this with no qualms whatsoever. But that phrase, untreated alcoholic, just buried itself in my brain. And I thought about that a lot. What does that mean? What does she mean? I haven't drank. What does that mean? You know? I don't know how she was able to name it. I'm guessing it was the way that I treated her, gaslighting, manipulation, disrespect, my control issues. Who knows? Could have been any one of those things. But she named it untreated alcoholism, and maybe she was right. So I haven't had any alcohol for a number of years. Fast forward the tape to 2013. I'm in graduate school, and my finances are a wreck. My life is very small, very, very small. I rent an in-law studio. Yeah, I don't know if y'all know what that is, but it's a very small kind of like place to live. It's roughly 140, 150 square feet. And I thought I had arrived. I had a little tiny, no jokes, a little tiny window with a partial view of the Bay Bridge, and I thought I had arrived. And again, I was an untreated alcoholic, and I'm like, I'm out there. I'm throwing everything at it. And by that time, I had pushed everybody away. I had pushed away all my friends. My parents were on timeout because they didn't get it. I was not going to go home and visit them for Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's. I was punishing them for treating me so poorly. And I was I didn't know this, but I was in the middle of a deep isolation period where all I was doing was going to work for a few hours, just getting away with as little as I could, and then I would brutalize myself in the gym for hours and hours and hours, and then I would come home and just isolate, and I would binge on stuff. Doesn't matter what stuff. I just binged, and I isolated, and I didn't know that I had been doing it for well over a year, and that worried me because I didn't know how to get out of that rut, and I thought to myself, I'm living like an alcoholic without the alcohol. All I do is come home and just, self-loathe and, whatever. Around that time, I have an older brother. He reached out for help. He was, from all indications, he was dying of alcoholism, and he didn't want to die of alcoholism, and he didn't know how to stop. He needed help. So he reached out to me, and I saw that as my chance to hold on to something meaningful. So I was like, yeah, I got experience with that, bro. Like, I quit drinking, I'll help you. He moved in with me into my 140, 150 square foot in-law studio apartment. No joke, it was such an incredible experience. Anyways, he moved in with me for a few weeks. He detoxed. He started going to outpatient therapy. And then he wanted to go to AA meetings every night, and he was like, after. And I was like, oh, I've been to those. I've been to those AA meetings. And then I thought to myself, now, do I just go and drop him off and be like, all right, bro, pick you up in an hour? Nah, that's not what I do. I'm gonna walk in. They call it I forget what all the references are, but like the front door, you come into AA through the front door, right? If you're like defeated and you walk in and you're ready and you take your seat, right? And then there's the back door. I forget what that reference is. Like somebody sends you. Anyways, I came in the side door, right? Like I snuck in. And I was like, I'm just gonna, like I've been to these meetings. I want to make sure he's comfortable. So I'm gonna go to these first meetings with my brother. And I sat in that chair and people talked about alcohol and God and all that. And I didn't get any of that stuff. I was just there to support my brother. And then somebody spoke in that first meeting that he and I went to, and they said, as an alcoholic, I treat my loneliness with isolation. I was like, oh, I've been doing that for a really, really long time. I think I need to come to more of these meetings. So my brother and I cruised all over the Bay Area for those few weeks, and we went to meetings all over, and we had a good time. And by maybe not the second, but by the third meeting, I was walking in before him, right? I was walking in, I was saying what's up to the chair, I was taking my seat. I knew that I needed to be there. And so I started going to meetings again in 2013, but I wasn't sure if I needed to like do Alcoholics Anonymous. I just loved the meetings. Like there was a 10 p.m. meeting that I would go to and just sit in the back because I loved hearing people talk about recovery. And at that 10 p.m. meeting, there was a young lady who walked in one day. Sorry, not that 10 p.m. meeting, the same building, but a different day. I remember this young lady walked in, and she was so baffled because she got sent to AA, and she was there because of the court. And she was sharing, she's like, I don't understand why I can't just like have a couple drinks and then just have that be it. Like it always gets away from me. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So anyways, I love going to meetings. I decided that I was going to get a sponsor and work the steps to the best of my ability. And so that's what I did. I got my first sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous in 2014. And he took me through the steps by meeting every week. We read out of the big book. And I'll never forget this. He said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to read a chapter, and when you've read it, text me, we'll get together, we'll read together. He's like, we're going to do it this way. I'll read a paragraph, you read a paragraph. I read a paragraph, you read a paragraph. I don't care how long the paragraph is. It could be one sentence, could be 20 sentences. I don't care. We're going to keep it simple. I'm like, all right, that's cool, works for me. It was very equitable, right? And I like that. And so we would sit in the park week after week, and we would read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous together. And when we got to a step, he said, what I do with you, you're going to do with other people. Right? I'm going to take you through the book. You're going to do this with other guys. We're going to read, and when it says to write stuff down, you're going to write stuff down. When it says to go talk to people, you're going to go talk to people. Sound good? I'm like, yeah, sounds good. When we got to the fourth step, I wasn't convinced of my alcoholism. I feel like I was on very shaky ground because I believed in the first half of step one. I admitted that I was absolutely powerless over alcohol, meaning once I started, I could not stop. But then there's the other side of the equation, right? Once I stop, can I stay stopped? And I wasn't so convinced about that because after all, it was me. Like I decided not to quit. I decided to listen to the doctor and like not drink anymore. The only thing that could bring me, the part of my story that brings me into that space is before my brother reached out to me, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to drink again. My finances are a wreck. I'm dropping out of grad school. I'm asking people to lie for me to cover up another lie. There's like all this damage behind me of like all these relationships. And I saw it. I always fancied myself as someone who could see down the road, you know, maybe a little farther than other people. And when I apply that talent to my own life, I'm like, oh, God. I'm going to drop out of grad school. I'm going to have to get a job that I don't want. I'm going to move back in with my folks, and I'm going to call the homies, and I'm going to drink again. And for me, that's not an option. If I drink again, that's game over. And I've always known that about my drinking. It's a death sentence for me, and that scared me. And so I believe that when my brother reached out, that was a miracle because it gave me a way to kind of get out of myself, even in a selfish way, in a self-centered way. It allowed me to get out of myself and to find myself back in AA. But anyways, I'm working the steps with my first sponsor. And like I said, I'm not 100% convinced. I was like, yeah, well, but I quit, I stopped. I'm keeping me sober. And my life was not that unmanageable. Like, I finished grad school. I'm finishing grad school, and I have friends. I climb, people like me. Some people like me. It didn't feel like my life was unmanageable, right? And so what ended up happening is I did what I always do. I used AA to get me through a rough patch. I got my finances in order. I got my grad work in order. I got what I needed. And I thought to myself, didn't do a complete port step. My sponsor pointed out there's 3 parts. There's a grudgeless, fears, relationship. I was like, I don't need to do those 2. I'll just do this first one. He's like, I recommend you handwrite it. Nah, I didn't handwrite it. I'm going to type it out. Just unwilling to follow direction. When we get to the 9th step, didn't follow his guidance. I would just call up people and told them why I felt their work was inferior to mine. I called up people and I told them why I had rejected them romantically. Don't ornaments. That's the 26-minute mark. I'm going to get sober here. So I did to AA what I always do is I extracted, I used, and I didn't know I was doing it. And I thought to myself, because I was chatting with my sponsor and his family in the car yesterday, they were like, hey, what are you going to talk about? And I'm like, well, I'm going to talk about how I think I'm the smartest person everywhere I go and how I think I can do this without AA. And they all agreed. They're like, yeah, you think you're the smartest person, but you're really not. So anyways, I did. I thought that I could sponsor myself. Alcoholism, ISM. I sponsor myself. I have the book. I've read it. I have your framework. I love a good framework. I love a good framework. And I can apply this framework to myself, and I'm going to live a long, happy life. It didn't take very long for all of the dread and the fear and all of that to come welling back up. And I could not live with myself. Could not live with myself. And that 18-year-old kid who was trying to destroy himself with alcohol and other activities was back. He was back. And I'm also an avid climber. And my solution to my perpetual state of restless, irritable, discontent is I'm going to go free solo something. I've never done this before. I'm going to go free solo a mountain, and it's going to be great. And my alcoholic thinking, the way it was explained to me, is this is pure alcoholic thinking. Selfish, unfettered alcoholic thinking. On my way up to the crag, I'm thinking to myself, this could be it. I could die. I could die today. And that thought kind of like, there was a little bit of relief in there. And my brain went to this place where it was like, oh, it'll be great. The funeral will be amazing. People from all walks of life will come. They will share stories about how awesome I was, but also how like I was an occasional jerk. And then they're like, yeah, but in the end, he was amazing, right? Not once did it occur to me what that would do to my parents, to my brothers, to my community. Didn't even enter my brain. All that entered my brain was, I deserve this. I deserve a thrill. So we do this free solo thing. I'm not going to tell you all the details of it. It was hairy. It was extraordinarily dangerous, and I barely made it out. And the first thought that hits my mind when my feet touch the ground, like when I'm off that mountain and I'm grateful to be alive, I think to myself, I am insane. I need to do AA. That is it. That is it. Because my thinking was, if I die, it's going to be a great funeral. If I make it, oh, what a great story. I get to tell this amazing story of how I on-sighted Crystal Crag in Mammoth Lakes, California. Never having free soloed anything in my life, it was going to be amazing. And that is not what occurred to me. What occurred to me is that I am absolutely in a bad way and I need help. I need a lot of help. So I had finished my graduate program in California, and I was on my way to Madison, Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, there are these groups who provide a lot of structure for guys like me. I was a feral animal, and I needed to be housebroken. I needed a straitjacket, I needed a muzzle. And so I chose to let Alcoholics Anonymous do all of that for me. So my sponsor gave me a lot of guidance, and this is what he did, right, to get to work the steps in AA. He asked me to call him every day at the exact same time, right? I had a call time. A couple minutes early, okay. A couple minutes after, okay. But the idea is we call on time. He also asked me to talk to 3 alcoholics every day. Not text, not email, not, whatever. He wanted me to talk. He wanted me to get on the phone, talk to 3 alcoholics every day, and to ask them how they are doing and for me to shut up. Okay. He asked me to wear a shirt and tie to my home group every week without fail. He asked me to wear a collared shirt to every meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that I went to without fail. And he asked me to listen. He just asked me to go to meetings and listen because by virtue of me being where I am, I don't know anything, and I'm here to learn. And I needed that structure. I really did. I needed all of it. And and I'm grateful for that. So Boomer, we get together, and I asked Boomer to sponsor me, and we get together for coffee. We're going to do the thing. We're going to get in the book. And he explains to me how it's going to work. He said, he's like, my experience is that my sponsor read me the big book, and guess what, Jose? I just got to sit there and listen. So if you would like, I can do that with you. I can read you the big book, and I can give you my notes, and you can write them in your book. And I was like, well, wait a minute. That's not my experience. How about you read and I read, and then you read and then I read, and we both share our experience? That seems a little more equitable. He's like, hey, I agree, man, I agree. He's like, I know half a dozen guys who do it that way. If you like, I can give you their number now. This is my experience. My experience is that my sponsor read me the first 164 pages of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and he told me his experience, and he shared with me his notes, and I just got to sit there and listen and copy those notes into my book so that hopefully one day I can do this with another still suffering alcoholic. If you would like that, Jose, I am happy to do that with you. And I just sat there and I'm like, doesn't this guy know who I am? Like, I free soloed Crystal Crag. I graduated from that school with that degree. Like, I have a math degree? What? Don't you know who I am? Like, fine. Let's do it your way. And I got to sit there and I got to listen to recovery for 90 minutes. We got in the book for 90 minutes, like every week. And he read me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He gave me his notes. We boxed things in. We underlined things. We wrote things, promises, warnings, all this stuff. And I loved it. I loved it all. Like I said, I needed that structure. So, where am I? Yeah, Wisconsin. Very structured AA. And then I get this other job offer here at the University of Utah. Yeah. Scratch that off. Anyways, I get a job offer here, and I moved to Utah in 2017. And everybody's doing AA wrong. Every meeting that I go to. I'm like, oh my, I don't know how everybody's staying sober. I got a lot of work to do here. I have a lot of work to do here. And then I meet John Mann at a meeting, and he's like, you should come to our home group. I think you'll like it. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think I'm gonna like anything here in Salt Lake. I think everybody's doing it wrong. Nobody's talking about the traditions. And he's like, oh, you should come to my home group. So he invites me to the home group. It's a Monday night NAA group. And I don't know if it was that first meeting or whenever, but eventually I got to see all of the things that meeting had to offer. Steps, traditions, concepts, speakers, recovery, newcomers, birthday chicks. And I was like, I recognize this. This is AA. So I made that my home group when I moved to Salt Lake City. Got a service commitment. And I got dialed in. One of the things I really appreciated about that group is if you came early to the previous location, you would see people at the church already super early, like an hour early, and they're getting in the book. They're reading. They're reading, right? Like, I'm assuming the sponsor is reading to the sponsee. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This seems familiar to me. I like this. I keep my sponsor in Wisconsin, but I need some local talent. And in 2019, Pat moves into town, and I'm like, you know what? I know how hard it is to move in sobriety. I'm gonna befriend this person. I don't know how much sobriety they have. I just know that it's difficult to move. And I remember seeing Pat at a meeting, and he was sitting in the front row, and I happened to be sharing, and he was just like nodding his head. It's nodding his head. Yeah, he's agreeing with everything I was saying. I was like, man, this new guy is picking up everything I'm putting down. I'm on fire tonight. And he's like, yeah, nod his head, nod his head, nod his head. And I really thought he was new because it was like in the winter and he was wearing a sweatshirt and shorts. I didn't know that he wasn't new and that he was from Ohio, so that's why he wasn't cold. Right? Anyways, I find out he's not a new guy. He's been around a while. And I remember the moment that I thought, I'm going to stay close. I'm going to stay close to Pat. We were talking about the 10th step, and he asked me, he's like, what do you think the most important part of the 10th step is? I was like, I got this. Obviously, is that this is a continual process. It says the word continue 4 times in that first paragraph of step 10. Continue, continue, continue. He's like, yeah, it does say that. But what if this is the most important part? And I'm going to forget off the top of my head, but he points to the part in the 10th step where it says, every day is a day where we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. Thy will not might be done. What if it's that? I was like, nah, that's not it. Can't be it. So I write it off, I go home, and I open my book, and I'm reading. I'm comparing my argument to his. I'm like, well, they're the same. There's a lot of value in both of these perspectives. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what, I think I need to hear more of this. Anyways, I asked Pat to be my sponsor in 2020, and took me through the book, and he said the same thing my previous 2 sponsors said. We're going to do this so that, God willing, you can do this with other still suffering alcoholics, and that's how this whole thing works. It's nice to be invited anywhere. People would dread when they see me walk through the door, would cringe, and I get invited to Sunday dinners, I get invited to game night, I get invited to, all kinds of gatherings that really feel like home and they feel like family. And that's important to me because I don't have immediate family here in Utah. And I struggle with my choices, right? Like I'm choosing my career over my mom and dad and my nieces and my brothers. And so it helps to have like really good folks here, really good people to plug in with and to live your life with, spend time. So I do appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. And it's nothing that I'm doing. This is all a power greater than me. It's absolutely a power greater than me. There's a part in the book that says, so like I said, I struggled with step 1. I struggled with the idea that I was keeping myself sober. And there's all of these great passages in the book that talk about, if you have an alcoholic mind, the time and place will come. I will drink again. And I do have an alcoholic mind, and I'm convinced today that my life depends on this stuff. So let me give you an example, a recent example. I was in Buffalo, New York for a week, and I was noticing that I was making excuses for why I was not taking people's phone calls. These are guys in AA, right? My phone is ringing, I'm not taking it. Oh, I gotta go check in, or I gotta go do this, right? That's fine, right? It's travel day, it's fine. 2 days in, 3 days in, I need to be taking phone calls. I haven't talked to my sponsor. I haven't called in. And then at one point, I start sharing or venting with someone who called me. Like I finally picked up the phone, and I was like, dude, I got to tell him myself. I'm just not willing. Like I'm not willing to call my sponsor. I'm not willing to pick up the phone. Like I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I might not be. I might not be an alcoholic because I'm not doing any of the stuff that I was trained to do, that I should be doing. And then so I call Pat right away, and I say, hey man, like I'm struggling with willingness. Like there was a time in my sobriety where every time I went out of town, I would always go to a meeting out of town. Always. It didn't matter which part of the globe. I was always going to an AA meeting because I loved that. And I haven't done that in a number of years. And so I'm really questioning. I'm walking the streets of like Buffalo, New York, and I'm like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I don't need to do all this. Maybe I'm fine. Maybe I'm just like a maladjusted young man and I just went through a rough patch. So I call my sponsor and I tell him all this stuff. And then he says, yeah, he's like, what does the book say? Might be worth a bad case of the jitters to get a what? Like a full knowledge of yourself. Anyways, he was implying, right? Like, hey, there's some good bars in Buffalo. You should go check them out, right? I was like, no, that's not an option for me. I am an alcoholic, and I not only cannot keep myself sober, I cannot live life on life's terms. And so I rely on Alcoholics Anonymous and the principles of AA, sponsorship, fellowship, all of that, not only to keep me sober, but to remove what's blocking me from living my life, from like living an authentic human experience that, and that's it. That's all I get, right? That's all I get being sober. I don't know how else to land this, except I'll say a little bit about the inventory process. I love the steps and I love the inventory because it reveals things. It asks me tough questions that I have to answer for myself. And it makes me look at myself in very hard ways. And so alcohol is not my problem, right? Alcohol is just like, it's there, but it's not there. It's all the stuff in the middle. And I could not face myself. I could not face the other obsessions, the other behaviors, the other ways the other things that I was putting before me and God. And so through the step work, right, through the inventory process, these fears came up over and over again, right? I have a fear of intimacy. I have a fear of commitment. I have a fear of being discovered a fraud. I have a fear of dying alone. I have, all kinds of fear, right? And these exercises, right, this inventory process led to the realization that I am an alcoholic and I'm powerless over alcohol, but I also need outside help, so I'm grateful to the steps that over the course of the 10 years that I've been working them, at that point 8 years, it revealed things to me that I would have not been able to name on my own. And so the book is very clear on this, right? The book says if we don't have a monopoly on alcoholism, we don't have a monopoly on anything. If you need to go see a medical doctor, go see a medical doctor. If you need to go get some other kind of help, go get other kinds of help, right? Go get all the help that you deserve. Go get all the help that you need. And I'm grateful for that. And Pat and the rest of the people in my life have been very supportive around this part of my journey. And I was wondering today, maybe I don't belong in AA. Maybe this talk will reveal that, I don't need to do this anymore. And it's convincing me that that's absolutely false. I need to do this, and I love it. Alcoholics Anonymous is one of the most unique organizations that I've ever had the honor of participating in and studying, and there's nothing like it on earth. Anyways, that's all I got. I'll pass.